Hi, this is Elliot Levine, keyboard player with Heatwave, who's done the hits Boogie Nights, Groove Line, Always and Forever. And you're watching Musicians Reveal with the great, amazing, funky Joe Kelley.
My next guest here on Musicians Reveal is a tremendous musician, great keyboardist, plays all sorts of music, funk, jazz, R&B. He has been in bands with the late great Wilson Pickett. He's been a member of the funk and R&B band Heatwave since 1999. He also has a great solo career with many CDs released, and he also does studio work. He gigs. He's an amazing performer. I've known him from afar all these years. We played his music on our various shows, but it's great to welcome
Yes.
Mr. Elliot Levine. He
Thank you
is
for
in the
having
house.
me.
Yeah, great to talk with you. And you're got a little break from the road with Heatwave, right?
Mhm. Right, for about a month, and then we go back. We'll be doing 3 shows in February, and we'll be at Las Vegas, Phoenix, and San Jose on a bill with a bunch of other people.
Right.
So I know tickets for all those are available at Ticketmaster. I know Phoenix is like a big show where it's going to be on Valentine's Day, and Keith Sweat will be headlining that one with. I know Evelyn King's on it. Here,
Wow.
I'm bringing it up as we speak.
Okay.
It's let's see, Keith Sweat, Ready for the World, the Jets, Mary Jane Girls, Force
Mhm.
MDs. That's
Wow.
at the Footprint Center in Phoenix, and then we'll be in Las Vegas at the Orleans Arena with John B, Color Me Bad, Malo, Evelyn, Champagne King, and the Force MDs. And then February 7th in San Jose at the SAP Center, SAP Center, with
Right.
Keith Sweat, Ready for the World, John B, Evelyn King, and Force MDs also. So if you're near any of those places, go to Ticketmaster and say hello. At least on Facebook.
It's
So I'm
like,
psyched about all those.
yeah, I'm assuming that's the start of hopefully a full year of 2025 touring. I know you go
Oh,
to the UK a lot, right?
not so much with Heatwave, but
Oh, okay.
we also will be on the Soul Train cruise. That's happening in November. So that's
Oh,
going to
okay.
have a lot of cool people on it. I know
Wow.
the OJs, Charlie Wilson, the Spinners. Uh, it's hosted by Don Cornelius' son, which is kind of cool. So, and that's going to be fun.
How
I'm looking forward to that, even especially with the weather here. So, which isn't so bad, but it's
I
still
know.
better in the
El,
better
El,
in better in the tropical climate.
Elliot rubbed it in. We're up in Saratoga Springs area, and it's like snow and ice, 20 degrees and windy. And he just showed me, hey, look what I'm dealing with today down in
Yeah,
Carolina. Was it
I
always?
can
Oh,
I
okay.
can show your audience real quickly. Yeah, there's the beach in back of me. You can sort of
Wow.
see it.
Yeah.
So there you go. So yeah, it's a beautiful. I wouldn't say it's warm, but it's like in the 40s. You can go walk the beach without a coat, but a short,
Right.
light jacket. Let me get the lighting a little bit better
Right.
here. Okay, here now. Okay, I'm back.
Have you ever with Heatwave played gigs in Myrtle Beach?
I would love if they would. They've been to Savannah, which is about 4 hours away, but I mean, sort of like, unfortunately, you know, uh, I shouldn't never say never. I've been trying to get them here, uh, but it's basically we play to a lot of people, so a lot of people would have to buy tickets, and that's what they
Yeah.
have to do.
Right. Right. So let's get back to we'll dive into your early beginnings of music. But since we're on the topic of Heatwave, you replaced a legend who just passed away recently, Rod
Hmm.
Temperton, who we know him through Quincy Jones's right hand keyboard man,
Hmm.
Michael Jackson, all the production, and there you are playing the music that he had a big hand in, and you're a great musician. And how did this happen? 1999, and you've been going strong
Well, first
since.
of all, I appreciate you mentioning Rod Temperton, and I love all the things he wrote. He wrote Thriller, he wrote Rock with You, he wrote Off the Wall. he wrote "Give Me the Night" for George Benson,
Wow.
uh, and "I Will Be There" for Quincy. Well, for Quincy Jones. Um, but as you probably know, after he wrote Thriller and worked with Quincy Jones, he had bigger things to move on to, so there was an opening. But how
Right.
I got in is I played in a band in Washington D.C. area with Pete Jordan, their sax player,
Okay.
and Keith Wilder, the original singer, moved to the DMV area in Springfield, Virginia, which was a few miles away. So basically, Pete got me into the band. After what happened was they were flying the people from England out here. Alarm! It's my time for an interview. Anyway,
Oh,
anyway, it was cheaper to not fly the people from England over here. So they sort of have their own version of Heatwave in England that does pretty much UK dates, and we do pretty much American dates. And that started when I started with them in 1999. Although I was with a lot of the original members that live in England when I first
right.
started. So they kind of like combined them and mixed and matched them, when I was with them. So I could say I played with a lot of the original members
Yeah,
for
and I
26
think
years.
Keith did a gig. Was it how many years ago that his last gig? 2017.
That's about right. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, but yeah, he had two strokes and was able to still perform for 5 years later. And of course, I miss him dearly. But it was fun working with. I mean, as I say, it's the tunes I grew up with, and I love Rod Temperton's uh, writing, and more importantly, he was a jazz keyboard player, which I am. So I feel like an
Right.
affinity toward him because he could solo and he knew all the theory, and you can tell just from the way he phrased a lot of the horn lines and everything else that he was jazz influenced. And of
Mhm.
course, what's cool about Heatwave is since he wrote all the tunes, there's a big prominent keyboard solo in all their hits. Boogie Nights and Groove Line will have like that
Right.
keyboard solo. So even if I don't get like a spotlight, I still get to do a solo in front of people, and that's like a keyboard player's dream.
Yeah.
Basically, Heatwave is like the best gig for a keyboard player. So
Wow.
I love it. And it doesn't get old, especially the music doesn't get old, and I love the band, and like a lot of their bands, we're all family and we're all friends. I mean, we'll we'll text each other and just chat. And a lot of
Right.
bands, especially '70s bands, don't have that,
Mhm.
but
Yeah.
it's fun to do, and it's good people to be with. I guess I should mention, all the
Yeah.
members.
Yeah. Come on.
Spoon's the drummer, which
Yeah.
is Warren Weatherspoon. Eugene Scooby is the vocalist, uh, and we got Dijon on vocals. Daryl Grady does the high vocals.
Right.
Tony Conti is a guitar player. Uh, there's a new guy, Stephen Mitchell, on bass. He just started, but he's good and solid.
Right.
And Chuck Ransom on keyboards, the other keyboard player, who could also sing. And he
Oh,
gets a
right.
spotlight if we have enough time, and he'll
Mhm.
sing some Stevie Wonder and just turn it out.
Wow.
So, so it's a fun group of people.
Yeah, I got to
Go
give
ahead.
a lot of credit to great musicians, stylish stage wear. Nobody's showing up in raggy clothes. You guys always have the
Oh,
glitter
and
and
then
jackets and yeah.
and yes, and that all of our outfits are designed, sewn, and hand sewn by Linda Wilder, Keith Wilder's widow, who lives in
Oh,
Atlanta.
okay.
So,
Wow.
she still plays a role in it, and her daughters, Lisa and Tammy, if we play anywhere near Atlanta, turn out and do some background vocals too. And his daughters, they're uh, have been have been playing with us since they were like very little. I mean, he would bring them on stage and they would, sing backups even when they were in high school. So we've known them for a while too.
Was did they sing backup for? a gig I saw on YouTube. There was two ladies singing background.
Yeah, that's them. That's
Oh,
Lisa and
okay.
Dan.
Yeah, they're
And they
right
have
behind you.
stories. It's like they have stories. Like when I mentioned, like Chaka Khan was on the gig, they said,
Right.
"Yeah, she babysat for us when Heatwave opened for Chaka Khan. We called her Aunt Chaka," which is really cool. It's
Right,
like,
right.
wow, Chaka Khan was my babysitter. That's just like something to, like think about.
Yeah, that she had time to babysit.
Well, I mean, she was getting ready to go on stage after us, so he
Right,
brought
right,
they were little then. And I
right, right.
guess, either his wife wasn't there because it would have been on the road. I'm not sure the details other than Chaka Khan watched them while they performed. And
That's
then,
right.
it was probably Heatwave opening for someone who was opening for Chaka. So she probably wasn't going on right after us so she could watch them. But I'm just assuming here.
Yeah.
The story itself is cool.
You do Heat Wave and yourself, Elliot Levine. You do a lot of solo gigs with the band, but you also are in some of these package 5-6 bands you mentioned before upcoming in February. What's it like? Are there a lot of trading of stories backstage, and are there bands that you're kind of at the side of the stage or watching on the monitor like, yeah, this is the band I want to see? Do you have those kind of moments?
Oh man, yeah. Like when we played this big gig in LA, which was a Full in Love Fest. It's like, yeah, I took my wife Anna there, and it was basically all the bands on a bucket list that we got to see. And I got to see and meet Dionne Warwick. That was like really cool
Wow.
because, like, I mean, just being little and listening to her, it's like, hey, it's Dionne Warwick. But I think the really coolest thing was seeing Al Green because he doesn't do a whole lot of performances. He might tour here and there, but he doesn't come to anywhere near me. So it's like I
Right.
got to see Al Green, which is cool. But the main people, I mean, I got to see Diana Ross and Santana was on it. Got to see
Wow.
him, got to see Cameo. But the headliners were Lionel Richie and the Isley Brothers, and just like everybody that's R&B that was big was at this, basically the R&B Woodstock, and that was last
Yeah.
August. And it was the coolest thing. And I guess the better, even neater thing was we had a really good time and a really good. We came on at 2:30, so people were already there, and we were on the stage that had like P Funk and Cameo. So when we
Wow.
were on stage, there was 50,000 people and people every direction, and it was just like a big rush. It's like I could say, "Hey, I got to do this," and it's just a
Yeah.
memory that will last.
I was the video, I believe, of the whole set is up on YouTube from a side
Mhm.
view where Elliot was
Right. Yeah,
performing.
yeah. My wife filmed it because,
Yeah, she
if
did great.
you're,
She did great.
yeah, if she was in the audience, she probably wouldn't have been all that
Yeah.
close. So
But
that was
I
pretty
also like
cool.
when she panned to the crowd, and my
Oh,
first
yeah.
reaction was like, wow, it seems like there's a lot of young people there too, and everybody was their hands were in the air,
Hmm.
and they loved Heatwave. Yeah.
Yeah. Because there was a mix of people, from like different, genres. Like, I mean, I mean, I wouldn't say there was young people, but yeah, there was, a little bit for everybody. And
Right.
in 4 different stages. So, you know, it was fun. And yeah,
Yeah.
we were on the funk stage. Or
So did you get much of a sound check, or is it just like we wing it and
well,
hope for the best?
the way they did it was there was like a rotating stage, and while one and we they were rotating people every 15 minutes with at zero gap in between bands. So when the band before us was playing, which was Shalimar, we would be setting up and line checking. So we got a
Okay.
line check, so and of course there was probably repetition and redundancy, meaning there's 3 mics and there's the same type of inputs and the same type of levels, but
Mhm.
it was fairly organized. Like we were setting up and line checking while the other band was coming on, and I was loading my sounds. Here's the
Right.
solo for Groove Line, here's the solo for Boogie Nights, while they were performing, and I got it all done in time. So it was very good. It was like clockwork. I mean, they had it together. Uh, except with one exception, it was like I was fiddling for. I was telling bring myself up, and they, my feed was in the other keyboard player's monitor, like they made me very loud, and the other keyboard player was trying to tell him turn Elliot down,
Right.
so I couldn't hear myself. But I knew that I could hear myself from a slight boom from the speaker, so I knew I was out there. But it was kind of like I was fiddling for the sounds on the keyboard player I could hear. So you know, I I was kind of, instead of, it wasn't all incredibly cool. There was still a lot of nerve wracking parts of it, but that's with everything. I still had the
The
time of my
music
life
sounded
and
great.
enjoyed it.
I
Right.
wouldn't have known all this was going on or ask you what was going on if I didn't see the view your wife took of right where you were signaling. Otherwise,
Yes.
I'm sure the people in the crowd had no clue.
Well, yeah. I mean, the main thing is all the sounds I needed were there, and
Yep.
all the parts I needed to play, I played. So it went well. It was fun.
Right. So let's talk about those days in the Mid Atlantic, which I could tell you still got that Mid Atlantic, a little bit of the accent.
Yep. Hold on. Let
Yeah.
me turn this down and get out of my email because that beat probably bled into. Okay, Mid Atlantic. I was born in
Yeah.
D.C. I
Yep.
grew up in Wheaton, Maryland, which is right outside of D.C. Uh, it's the same high school that Joan Jett went to, although we weren't there at the same time.
Okay.
Uh, and I guess the jazz ensemble kind of made me want to do music, although I've been playing since I was 4, and I knew I was going to play music since then. But Mr. Black, the jazz ensemble director, uh, really, got me featured and did a thing. I was like the first year where they said, let's branch this into small groups. So I had my own band. It was called the Big E Quintet. And we played the assemblies, and it was just the coolest thing because basically in high school, I was a nerd. I didn't have the looks, but by playing the piano, I knew that people could be moved by what I was doing. So it was like, hey, I got this thing that's unique to me, and I might not have big self esteem any other way, but I got it this way, and this is something that gives me joy. So
Mhm.
um, I think, Mr. Black, I think he's still actually around. Last I checked, he's in his 90s in
Wow.
California.
Mhm.
But what I have done, the other thing was, I do a scholarship for Wheaton High School for
Oh,
people
that's
in their
cool.
jazz
Yeah.
ensemble.
Yeah.
Basically, Wheaton High School is fairly much, and I could just say it, is a blue collar type school. The
Mhm.
people in my graduating class went on to do like, um, you know, didn't really go to college, which was like, they had their own professions. Like some became business owners and cosmetologists and auto mechanics, but very few went to college, at least from the reunion. So I said, okay, I can change this by doing a scholarship. Not only does it make the world better, but it, improves people and their families and gives them a career with job skills. So basically, for the last 9 years, I've did a scholarship for people in the Wheaton Jazz Ensemble that have been accepted into an accredited college.
Wow.
And good or bad,
Mhm.
it's never been a hard decision because still, just like before, only one person in the whole jazz ensemble is accepted into college. So there's no decision that has to be made, even though I'm not really part of the decision. The music teacher decides
Mhm.
because
Right.
a scholarship can't have that in order to be, fair and tax deductible. That's the other part of it. But the main thing is, yeah, for 9 years, and I've been doing this and I've seen the results. It's like, okay, the first year I gave a scholarship, the guy that I gave a scholarship to University of Maryland Eastern Shore became a music teacher in the school system in Eastern Shore. So it's like, cool. I've like,
Yeah. You made a
changed things.
difference.
And I knew that he was the first person in his family to go to college. So it was like, it was like a double thing that helped. And I know other people, not all of them that did music for their careers. Some have become IT, some have gone into the financial sector. But I know that at least in Wheaton, it was partly my story too. I had trouble paying for college
Mhm.
and I was in debt for 10 years, paying student loans. It's like, I could change this. I could make this better for others. And it's like something that's near and dear to me. And it's sort of like, I also, when I was dealing with like financial planning, which you do when you're older. I want to make sure that this goes on forever, so I'll be remembered. So, I have it set to have scholarships at Wheaton High School for the next 100 years if they're still Wheaton High School. So
Wow.
that's something I'm really proud of, and
Yeah.
I think by telling people about it, there's other people with similar things. Like, there's someone that did a basketball scholarship for their college because basketball got them, improved their life and got them changed their life for the better and had them go to college. So, you know, it's sort of like the future is the future, and you can make the world better by doing it. And that was like, if I'm remembered for anything, that's what I want to be remembered for. For it's like, okay, 20 years from now, no one will know who Elliot Levine was, but they'll know that he paid for someone's college, and maybe they might Google him and hear my music. So it's like,
Yeah.
it's a good way to be remembered.
Yeah. I mean, to your last breath, you'll be happy if that carries on. So yeah, you're to
Right.
be commended for
And
that.
and the cooler thing is I got to shake the people's hands that I gave the scholarship. I got to see it in my lifetime. A lot of people
Okay.
do scholarships in memory of someone, and they don't see the results of it or know about it. It's like, no, I did this. It's sort of
Yeah.
like, and I've know the people that have gotten the scholarship that have gone on and done great things. So it's a cool thing. I recommend other people listening, consider doing it. And it's real easy to do. You just contact the high school you went to, and you don't have to contribute much. Anything helps. So, and you can have a scholarship in your name doing it. And basically, it helps reduce crime because if someone has, desperation, it eliminates that if they have a job skill that gives them, a way to make money without being desperate. And it helps their families and their future generations. I mean, it helps a lot of things on a lot of levels. Not to say that anybody would be a criminal, but it does help. It
Right.
helps with the desperation that you would face if you didn't have the skills to have a good job. So anyway,
So from your high school beginnings, and then you carried it on, a living legacy going on right now.
mhm.
Where was the movement into a professional career playing music for a living? How did that happen?
Oh, okay. Well, I guess during COVID. Well, I'm trying to think of a good way to say it. Well, my story was in the year 2000, there was a site called mp3.com that basically they went public and became worth $4 billion overnight. And I had a song on it that basically they were paying 5 cents a download. I had 1 million downloads. I had a $50,000 check in 2000, paid my house off.
Wow.
And there's, because of that, I was able to, retire at age 57 because I think what happened was I had to turn down a cool gig that would have been 8 weeks in London because I couldn't take 8 weeks off from my IT job,
Right.
and which is what I did during the day. I was
Mhm.
always played music I would almost say full time during weekends because it is
Right.
2 full-time jobs. But after COVID, it was like, okay, everything is paid off. I'm going, I can enjoy my life now, or do what I
Right.
always wanted to do, full time. And it was the best decision I ever made. But anyway, yeah, the story with MP3 is I was the first person to get 1 million downloads. It got my song Urban Groove got used by a Swedish ice skater for her her Olympics.
Oh, wow.
It got
Yeah.
used by well, it got used in a movie called Cash, which was a kung fu movie based in Hong Kong. And
Okay.
one of the tunes off that album, Smash, got used by Inside the NBA. So,
Wow.
it was a cool time in 2000 when the internet was huge and anybody with a website would go public and become worth a lot of money on the speculation that the ads on the website would somehow make them rich until, of course, it all failed. But, you know,
Yeah.
the guy that owned mp3.com that was worth 4 billion, sold it for like 300 million. So he still did okay, not as good as he could have done if he sold it for 4 billion. But
Mhm.
the part that how did I get big on there is that I had a IT job where I'd set up servers on a Navy contract. So I went out to San Diego where they were based to load a drive into a server, and I was done at 12. So I drove up to MP3.com's headquarters. The guy that owned it knew me. They weren't that huge then. And it's like they
Right.
featured me on a million promo CDs with like 103 song MP3 files on it,
Okay.
and it was distributed free to colleges. And so a million people heard me, and I guess because I did instrumental smooth jazz, there I had the advantage that in different countries there wasn't a language barrier. In other words,
Oh, right.
instrumental music, you know, had the advantage of you know not having words they couldn't understand
Right.
or anything controversial to them, or whatever. But anyway, so it got to be number one for about 4 months on, was number one overall for a few weeks. And then they had the jazz charts and it was number one then. And it was in good company. I mean, there's other people. Huge Groove got a start from there right before me. Like I knocked Huge
Right.
Groove out of the number one position.
Wow. So,
So
so you got that claim. Yeah.
right,
You're
but
right.
you can get a million. I got the million.
There he is. And I think they did a write up on you in the Wall Street Journal, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
was the idea of that was I was on a minor record label called Artifacts,
Mhm.
and they wanted to put out the new album I had, and it's like I'm thinking I just got $50,000. I'm not going to get that from a minor music label, so I turned them down. So the idea that this person with this new MP3 internet thing could turn down a record deal and still make money was like a newsworthy thing. So they featured me in like the Wall Street Journal, and CNN picked up on it, and for a few for a few days, people
Right.
knew who I was, you know. So that was really cool at the time, and I could say basically I was like one of the first people to utilize the internet before things were viral,
Right.
and know the power of international airplay and publicity by hustling online, which is what you have to do then and
Yeah. You
now.
made it happen. I mean, you got to have the solid music, but yeah,
Right.
you knew
And
how
then,
to do it.
yeah, that was the other part of it. I had an IT background. The other thing I did within that time is there,
Mhm.
a lot of the Baltimore and DC musicians, were tech unfriendly. Well, I didn't know tech well, so I helped about maybe 10 or 12 people that were local to Baltimore and DC convert their CDs to MP3, and I had a scanner and a modem, so I uploaded stuff, and a few of the people like Eddie Anderson and I'm trying to think of some of the others, Jock Johnson, who's no longer around. A lot of them made a few $1,000s and
Mhm.
got like a few 100,000 downloads because I helped do it. I mean, I charged $25 for like basically what would take an hour to do,
Right.
and but because of that, a lot of people that would not have been on the site did well or got heard. So it was kind of cool at the time. I didn't just do it for me. Is the point? There was
Yeah.
a few
Yeah.
local musicians that I helped out doing that with.
So how about today, something like that? A musician, you find that almost next to impossible to do something similar that you did to get heard?
Well, there's a lot of outlets and a lot of things that weren't there now. Of course, there's a lot more competition, but all we need is like a viral TikTok video, and you can have the same results, if not better. I mean, people that are content providers can make millions basically.
Right.
Couldn't make that then, but you're competing with a million other people too. So it's there's a lot of the things that were there that are similar, and then there's a lot of new opportunities that are also just as competitive. So you
Right.
have to be, I think, even more unique or compelling. That's, I guess, the
Yeah.
best way to say it.
Yeah, I wanted to touch base on Wilson Pickett. You played in his band, right?
Hmm.
Yeah,
I
tell us about Wilson Pickett.
Okay. Uh, I love. Well, he was my idol,
Okay,
and I didn't play. I mean, I basically subbed for their keyboard player that couldn't make a few of the gigs in the early '90s, '92 to '93. So I did it.
mhm,
I wasn't really a full-fledged member as I was a sub on a tour when the keyboard player was out, out of
right.
commission for a few months. But either way, it was fun. I loved playing with him. I mean, he had the voice. Now, he would scream at people like he would scream when he was singing. Like, when we were going to a rehearsal and we were driving up from Maryland, he would say, "You're late," like that. So his scream was not just what he sang.
Yeah, yeah.
But I guess the other cool thing was, we got to rehearse at his house, and it might not be. He basically said, "I'm the first white person to ever be at his house." He wouldn't even allow his manager into his house. But
Right.
so I
So
guess
you were a
there's that.
trailblazer, yeah.
Right. I mean, I guess either that or he, didn't have rehearsals with his other bands at his house. But either way, it was kind of cool to play with him, and it was a neat thing. And I still play with a lot of his band members. There's the Midnight Movers, which is Curtis Pope, who was an original Wilson Pickett trumpet player.
Mhm.
And back in the day, the first band I was with, Skip Pitts, which is Charles Skip Pitts. If you know the tune Shaft, he was the guy
Yeah.
that did the yakka 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 on the guitar. He played with
Oh,
Wilson
wow.
Pickett. So along, and he lived in D.C. So I would do gigs with him, like there's a place called the Vegas Lounge, small rinky dink. I shouldn't say rinky dink, a small place, but yeah, this is the guitar player that played Shaft, and it sounds like Shaft, and that's the guy
Wow.
that did it, and I'm playing Shaft with him. It's like,
Wow.
wow, I have to pinch myself,
Yeah. That sound is like really
Hmm.
fits that era perfectly. Yeah.
Right.
So I got a quick Wilson Pickett story. I got into radio in '82, and in '83, I was filling in for the nighttime R&B DJ. I worked part-time at the radio station. It was a professional station because James Brown and Wilson Pickett came into town to do a show at the Shakespeare Theater in Stratford, Connecticut. And after I filled in for him, the shift, they were doing two shows a night. I went to the show. Backstage, the first two musicians I ever met, Wilson Pickett and James Brown that night. It was like, wow. And I never really appreciated how big these guys were until, years later, but that was something, yeah.
Or
James Brown with his hair and
or how
curlers.
good they were. I mean, that's the other
Yeah,
part.
yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It was just
Because I know just growing up, I was lucky to have older brothers that had good taste in music, and there was the James Brown 45 I would be playing when they weren't there, and I would scream like them when I was like 5.
yeah.
Which would have been a viral video if people had like the ability to do it. But yeah, I mean, I like James Brown at an early age. It's like, yeah, I
Yeah.
want to have that energy. you know, that's really
Well,
what I said.
how about for keyboardist, piano, funk R&B keyboardist? Who did you look up to and who do you really dig now?
Oh, good question. I was just going to talk about him. Monty Alexander. I mean, basically, they had there's a keyboard player from Jamaica. He's kind of blues influenced,
Mhm.
and I got to see him for free with Milt Jackson and Grady Tate at a thing called Jazzmobile, and there weren't a
Okay.
lot of people. Like I was like, second row. Maybe there was, if anything, under 500 people there, and it's like, in high school, I would hear things like Art Tatum or Oscar Peterson, which were these fast virtuoso piano players, and that probably practiced every waking minute of their life to get to that point. And I'm thinking, I'll never be that good or that fast. But when I saw Monty Alexander, I felt something. It was like the blues in a jazz groove. And it was
Mhm.
like, I want to make people feel the way I feel listening to him when I play that way. That was my goal. It's like, you don't have to play fast. You don't have to play every waking minute to get something very, very intricate. even though it's impressive to do. You just have to make people feel something. And that stayed with me. So yeah,
Right.
Monty Alexander and then McCoy Tyner. What I got from him was like, he was like heavy metal rock only with jazz. He would do these fourth chords that were powerful. And it was like, okay, wow, I'm feeling the same way I feel listening to Led Zeppelin, listening to jazz with him playing this heavy thing that's like almost cathartic. And I like that part from him. And then with funk, Billy Beck from the Ohio Players.
Mhm.
I mean, he's pretty much the biggest unsung hero. You know, he wrote um, do, 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 Skin
Skins
Tight.
made, right? Yeah.
It's like, okay, that's, you know, in terms of funk, as good as it gets. So, and of course, Bernie Worrell from P Funk. I mean, without knowing that it was him that was doing it, you know, the
Right.
keyboard player from P Funk. Yeah, that there was something about that too.
Yeah. The biggest mistake, I always make this story sometimes, that Bernie Worrell, he was a good friend of ours, but we met him the first time he came to the studio. He brought his keyboard tech, all his keyboards into the studio. So he would,
I
he's
know
got,
where you're going. There are a lot
yeah,
of keyboards.
yeah, there were a lot of keyboards. But so it was the old WVOF, not the second one where
Mhm.
the last time I worked at VOF. So I'm here, and before he came down a few days before, his wife Judy says, "Oh, I'm going to give you Chris France and Tina Weymouth's number from the Talking Heads and Tom Tom Cook because they were friends." I
Mhm.
call up Chris France. They actually live in the town where the station was, so they came down to surprise Bernie. So Bernie's got all his keyboards in the middle studio. They show up as the interview starts and surprises him. And the thing is, we made so much, there was so much talk in the interview, reminiscing. I think I only had him play like a minute of his keyboards, which I've got on tape somewhere in the closet there, which I got to convert. But yeah, missed opportunities.
Wow,
Yeah. But he
that's
was
well,
such
that's
a nice
good.
guy. And, he was just like, he was always helping young, like you're helping younger musicians. He was just like, we'd go backstage at shows. He'd go, "Hey, was it like a musician in their 20s? You got to meet Joe Kelley. Does a radio show in Connecticut, blah, blah, blah." And, he was a really sweetheart of a guy.
That was
So,
cool.
yeah.
And I never got to see or meet him. I've seen P Funk a few times, but you know,
Yeah. P
he'd
Funk.
left when he'd left
Yeah.
when I got to see him.
Right. Right. Yeah. Still, P Funk's still going on, So,
Yeah, but I do, you know, I'm fairly good friends with Greg Boyer, their trombone player. I'm on a
yeah. He,
CD with
right.
Christian Demosonis with him,
He's
and
coming by next week for the show.
tell him I said hi.
Yeah, I got it. Yeah, because when I knew Marilyn, I said I was going to ask you off air if you guys knew each other from the area. Yeah. So yeah, I'm going to tell him you were on. We talked nice things
Okay,
about
cool.
him. Yeah.
Yeah, of course, you know,
Yeah.
and I don't want to give it away, but and I'm not sure if it's up for me to say it, but a lot of Prince's horn arrangements when he played with Prince were basically written by him. You
Yeah.
know, but that's something to ask him about because, like, yeah, when
Yeah.
you hear Prince's horn arrangements, that but from that period, that's him doing it. So yeah,
Yeah, he
mention
was on
that
the
to him.
show. He was on the show 20 years ago when they were doing musicology, and
Hmm.
they were rehearsing before the tour started. He had a wisdom tooth taken out the day he did the interview, and he showed up. And yeah, I'll definitely ask him about writing the charts in the group. Yeah. So
Yeah, he has some stories, but it's up to him. You know, it's him to tell it.
yeah,
So
yeah, definitely. So one thing I wanted to say, and my wife wanted to thank you too. And I want to thank you. During COVID, you had a really unique thing which you did in your backyard, and when you were
oh
in
man, you
Maryland.
know about that?
Oh
Cool.
yeah, yeah. I used to watch those. There's still, you archive them on YouTube,
Hmm.
which you're just in your backyard with your setup and your iPad, and
Hmm.
you're doing your thing. Thank you. And you did it for, raising money for food banks and stuff like that, right?
Yes, right. Oh man, thanks for bringing that up. Um, but yeah, basically, uh, I had never done music to tracks until then, because like in DC especially, all the clubs were closed, and there were a lot of people that were out of work, especially not just musicians, but people that worked at clubs, bartenders, and other people. So basically, I thought, hey, I'm not, let me do something about this and have fun in the process. So basically, I set up my keyboard in my backyard, and at the time, it was also the right place and right time because Facebook kind of their algorithm was skewed more heavily toward live streaming. So the
Okay.
first time I did it, there was like 2,500 people listening at, you know, when I was doing it. It's like, wow,
Yeah.
2,500 people. So um, basically, I raised $2,000 over like about 9 month period for the Maryland Food Bank, and about that much also for Shepherd's Table, which is a Silver Spring, Maryland-based uh, nonprofit that helps not just homeless, but basically they'll feed anyone that shows up, and they also do services like provide necessities, shampoo, shaving cream, soap, whatever
Right.
else to people that need it. So they're a good organization, and it was really good to help them. And you know, I think also because of that, the basic thing is like I had fun. I
Yeah.
varied it. Like every gig I did like a feature. Like I'd have like a reggae week, or there was a you know James Brown and tribute, a Prince tribute. Uh, I did some EDM one time. It was just like
Right.
everything was very different, but the main thing is I had fun, and that was the
Right.
coolest thing. And as a side note, my son was in high school, and he was, they closed the high schools all Zoom meetings, but you needed to have basically the things where I'm trying to think of community service. So by
Oh
setting
yeah.
up my keyboard, he could write in his community service hours because it was for,
Why not?
helping the food bank. So
Right.
he was
Right.
able to, do that
Right.
during the time when that was few and far between.
Did
So
you did you have to warn the neighbors there was going to be a concert?
strangely, well, I mean, we all knew our neighbors, and it's
Okay.
actually, and I wasn't anticipating this, and I guess partly because I was in Maryland, they loved it.
Oh,
I
okay.
mean, it was basically, yeah, people I didn't know. Hey, I heard you play, and I heard you're raising money for the food bank, and it's a cool thing. And it was like, I mean, it helped. It was during the day at 3 p.m. on Sundays, so it's not
Right.
like I'm keeping anyone from sleeping,
Yeah. Yeah.
or but they all went along, and especially the close-in neighbors. It's like, yeah, I can't wait to hear you. Some of them just hung out like near the fence, listening
Right.
in, so it was pretty
Yeah.
cool. Or they were watching online. So, unlike some neighborhoods or some other places, they didn't have
Yeah.
any problem with that during the time. Uh, and it was really cool. I mean, even there are people I didn't know, maybe a block away or 2 blocks away. Hey, I hear you're the guy that's playing. Wow,
Oh, it went
So it
that
went
far.
real.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
yeah, well, I was, it's a big speaker in my backyard, and me
Right.
having
Right.
fun, so
Yeah.
it could go a couple blocks. But I guess the other cool thing is a lot of the media picked up on it, or at least WTOP and a TV station in Hagerstown. It's like, good news, there's this. So, it helped get my name out there by doing it. So it was a good thing,
Yeah.
and it was more, I was able to help people during the time of people needing help and having
Yeah.
fun in the process. It was more, I was just looking forward to it because it's like, there are no gigs, but I have my gig here, and I
Yeah.
got an audience. So it's like, wow, this is
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. We
So,
were really digging it, and I know I saw some of the talk about it, so that's cool. Hey, you're a performer, an emotive performer. You just don't stand there just like in one spot. You're digging in real hard into the music. What do you attribute that to, and talk
oh,
about it?
well, okay, I'll go deep with this. Basically, I think, for lack of a better way of saying it, I love to have attention. I guess my parents were older when I was, growing. I mean, my parents had me like, when they were around 40. So it's like, I wasn't, their attention wasn't what it was when they were younger. So I knew if I could play piano, they'll at least stop banging on the piano, even though I was
Right.
just playing. So it's like, hey, I can get attention by playing piano. So basically, for lack of a better way of going into the deep psychology, I'm getting attention doing it. That's which is probably why I like playing gigs where I don't play background music and be ignored because,
Right.
part of it is like I love attention. But then the other part of it is I'm feeling it. That's the other part that I
Mhm.
go into the zone. I think the zone which is where you're just playing and uh, it's the closest to being with the spirits as you can get. So when I'm in the zone, I'm transcending earthly things and being in the spirit world. And I
Yeah.
go there on a long solo. It's sort of there was a movie and I can't think of the name of it. It's where they talked about that. The guy that played on Colbert. Anyway, he did that movie where they talked about the zone. Which is uh,
Oh,
and
Baptiste.
yeah, John Baptiste. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Right.
thank you
Yeah.
so much.
Yeah.
As I say, names and
I was stuck for a while, and I just started thinking, we'll
yeah,
put it, the two of us together, and we'll get it all the info.
right. Thank you so much for remembering him.
Yeah.
Yeah, that movie talked about going into the zone, and that's very true. It's sort of like when you're playing something and just getting into it, it's almost
Mhm.
like you're in the spirit world. I could even tell, like, when I was doing that in Blues Alley and I opened my eyes, I saw the ghost of Dizzy Gillespie, which was kind of
Yeah.
weird. But, you know, it, that's the other part. I get into it that way too, not
Mhm.
just for the attention, but I'm like not even paying attention to the reality. I'm just there in my zone.
Right.
That's a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what you do it for. So, and
Hmm.
you give us joy at the same time. So, yeah. I gotta
I'm
ask you.
selfish. It's me. I have the joy.
Yeah, that's
I
right.
mean,
You're
and when I
entitled to
talk
it.
when I talk about people, it's. I'm not the best virtuoso. There's a million people. Well, there's 100 people in New York that could play better, in terms of skill than me. But my claim to fame is I have the most fun. There's very
Right.
few people in this world that could say they have more fun playing than me. So maybe one or
Yeah.
two, but not,
Right.
not like
Yeah.
that's my niche. I have fun.
If you go, while after this interview, whenever you're watching it, stay on YouTube and just type in Elliot Levine YouTube. You'll see different gigs with Heatwave, solo gigs, trio gigs, and what we just talked about. He's not lying. So that's great. Yeah.
I have the most fun.
Yeah. A quick technical question before we get into something else. I was watching the other day. I'm a big Minneapolis fan. Jimmy Jam was going through the Flight Time
Mm.
Studios,
Hmm.
and they came across a couple keytars. You were one of the earlier ones to play the keytar, right?
Well, I mean, the physical keytar, they had a SH-101 that I play like literally in 12th grade, which,
Okay.
we're talking 1980. I mean, not the first to play the physical keytar, but I'm the first person in 2012 to use an iPad with
Ah.
like a keyboard on the iPad that goes into a speaker where, I mean, the first thing was it's like, hey, I can make this iPad into a keytar by getting a very special strap. Well, basically a 1970s camera strap that would
Oh,
go into
okay.
a camera
Right.
and a cord, either a long cord or later a guitar wireless plugged into there. So I was the first person that I know of, and
Right.
definitely the first person on YouTube to ever think of that. It's not like there's other people doing it because it's not easy to do. You have to play smaller keys and you have to configure it to a certain way. So, but yeah, I mean, I was the first person to use an iPad like a keytar. And it's still cool. It's like with Bluetooth, I could go out in the audience with my iPad,
Mhm.
and play. And a lot of the technology is there's a lot less lag time with Bluetooth, with the newer Bluetooth stuff. So, and I guess the other part is if you play fast, the lag time doesn't matter as much.
Right. Right.
So,
And also a tip I saw you mentioned: don't play it in hot weather and having your fingers sweat. Right.
oh boy,
I saw that
you're
interview.
good.
Yeah.
That's very, very true because
Right.
yeah, and otherwise a note will stick, and
Right. Right.
you'll play a B flat when you're trying to play an A. So yeah, that was rough. but
Yeah.
luckily I had a shirt to wipe the keytar with, my iPad with, so it didn't
Right.
last
Right.
long. There's always
Yeah.
a way
Yeah. But
around it.
that was cool interview. Yeah. So
I
so
guess
for
the
our
other part, I'm brutally honest. It's like if
yeah.
you mess up, just say you messed up, have fun with it, and move on.
Right.
You
That's
know.
yeah, but it's authentic, so that's cool.
Mhm.
Hey, one thing Elliot and I share is a passion for horse racing, and Elliot.
Speaking of authentic,
Oh,
yes, which is
wow,
a
that
horse.
wasn't intentional, but yeah, if you don't know, Elliot was a part owner of a Kentucky Derby winner, authentic, trained by Bob Baffert. The that was, you did a lot of media appearances, and you're
Well,
still
by
talking about it.
part, by
Yeah.
part, it was like I owned 1/100,000th of it with 5,000 other people. But it was a $200 investment that I saw authentic run in the Stakes Cup. Basically, this horse was much faster than any other horse there is. And it
Mhm.
had this speed rating of like 103, where every other major horse, was like in the 80s or 90s for speed rating. So this thing was amazing. It's like, hey, I can get a piece of this, even
Right.
though. So basically, uh, the thing, yeah, the horse won the Kentucky Derby, but the other part of it, my wife Anna worked at Walter Reed with basically at their simulation center, where she hired actors to pretend they're sick, and the Walter Reed doctors would diagnose what was wrong with them. And the sports assistant from WTOP, which is a main news channel in DC, had a part-time gig as an actor playing sick so that the Walter Reed people could diagnose him. But anyway, he said, "There's no way Authentic's going to win." He was like a long shot at 15-1 in the
Right.
Derby. And like when you watched the Derby at the time, it's like all these celebrities, none of them wanted Authentic. They all like wanted the favorite or the second favorite. This was like the third favorite. So, and like when he won, it's like, I got to get Elliot. I got to have him
Uh,
talk to WTOP. And once again, WTOP in DC is the highest rated channel. So, and
They
even though
carry
they're
they
20,
carry
they're
the Orioles, right?
well, they're news,
Okay.
24-hour news and traffic
Okay.
and weather, which you need 24 in DC, which is a weird thing with DC, but that's how it is. But anyway, so they interviewed me, and it was like they played it over and over, and then Channel 5, which is Fox News in DC,
Mhm.
said, "Okay, we got to pick up on this story." And of course, I had this like this polo shirt that had Authentic on it, so that was like really cool. Right after the Derby, and they played that morning, noon and night, and then CNBC took that lead and said, "Okay, we got to interview Elliot too." So the bottom line is, as hard as I trying to make it as a musician, for like that 1 week, I was like more famous than anything I'd ever do in music from a $200 investment owning, 1/100,000th of a horse.
Right.
And people at Starbucks or Safeway said, "Hey, you're the guy that owns the horse. Can I get a picture with you?"
Right.
So yeah, for 1 week, I was like super, super famous as a
So
horse owner.
authentic.
Yeah,
D- uh,
Authentic
you're
won the Derby and came
yeah.
second in the Preakness.
Right. Right. And then the Belmont didn't run. Right.
Yeah, he didn't run.
Right.
But
Okay.
and basically the bottom line, if anybody's thinking I made a lot of money from it, no, I might have like made I made my $200 back and maybe like $50 more than that. But I made the money with authentic betting on it because it was 15-1, and I bet like I'm not like a big better. I bet
Right.
like maybe 20 or $30 and made a few hundred. So I made my
Right.
money back, knowing that authentic was going to win. So but the coolest thing was it's like, hey, I could get on Cameo as a horse race owner and say happy birthday to people in my authentic shirt. I
Did you
made
do that?
$25. Yeah, I made
Oh, okay.
$25 doing that.
Right. Right.
So it
So
was
did you
cool.
invest in other horses since?
Well, that's a good question. I want to also say another thing about authentic is that the real money that he made was from as a breeder. In other words, he has like 200 kids,
Right.
and people paid like $70,000 each time. So most of the 200 I made back from authentic wasn't from the races, but from the from breeding. But
Okay.
and I was also going to say a fan of one of his kids named Rodriguez, which is the Thoroughbred Daily News rising star. So look out for Rodriguez, even though I don't own him. I mean, I
Right.
made a half a penny from him breeding him, but he's going to win. I see him winning the Derby. Anyway, do I own another horse? Yes. Lucky Running Cat, which is based out of Pennsylvania. He's
Okay.
running Friday at Penn National in the ninth race. He isn't a perfect horse. He usually, I shouldn't say bad things about him, but he's usually way ahead and then he chokes and comes in second. So he
Right.
would be a good horse to bet place on, but
Yeah.
not to win.
Or underneath in the exacta, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah. So yeah,
But
that's great. You're staying about. Did you go to Laurel and Pimlico when you were in Maryland?
it was usually Charlestown because the horses were cheaper.
Oh, okay.
And unlike Pimlico or Laurel, like you could hang out in the stable and I would feed my horses. I had like two horses. One was Tap, 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 which is from Tappet, which is a big horse. And the other one was called Chartreuse. But I could like pet them and feed them carrots and apples. And more importantly, the owner of it, Blue Streak Racing, um, were kind and they treated their horses well. I mean, the story with Tap 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 was they claimed them from an owner that treated them like crap, and you know, you could tell like they didn't take care of him. And then the when Blue Streak got him, they fed him well, they took care of him, made sure he was healthy, and then he came in first a few times. So it was cool. I try to
Right.
get a horse trainer that I know isn't going to abuse her horses. They don't.
Yeah, that's
They don't
key.
whip them
Yeah.
hard.
Right.
They basically they win because they want to win, not because they're being beaten by a thing. So you
Right.
know,
Right.
I like compassionate horse trainers, and
Yeah, I've
usually
seen
go out with them.
Bill Parcells. He lives up here in Saratoga Springs, and he was at the training track sitting in a golf cart with George Weaver's dog while George Weaver was training horses and just watching them. So he's a big thoroughbred fan. He owns horses too, Parcells. Yeah.
But it is a cool thing to see your horse win and go to the winner's circle and just like and the horse is excited, the trainer's excited. There's nothing like it. And like during the Kentucky Derby, that was just like, as I say, I mean, it's a cool thing with Heatwave to play in front of a lot of people, but it's also
Mhm.
a cool thing to have a horse that wins the Derby.
Yeah.
It's like that was like kind of like a highlight of my life. That was
Was
fun.
anybody in the band Heatwave putting some dollars on your horse?
Most of them aren't into that. They're more into football, but
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. I know. It's a little niche.
it's
The
kind
horse
of yeah,
racing.
it's
Yeah.
unique. I mean, there's
Yeah.
some other musicians that are into horse ownership, but not so much with Heatwave. That, but
Yeah, the
it was
first
fun.
track I ever went to was I was visiting my dad who did business out there in Hong Kong. I went to Happy Valley, Hong Kong. That was great. So yeah, you got to make it out here. We got a lot,
Mm,
April to November, the horses are up here, not necessarily running races, but they're training and they're going to be up here, Belmont Stakes, July 4th festival, and then the standard Saratoga. So Heat Wave,
I
they
go up there.
got Saratoga Arts Performance Center, big place.
Hmm.
I don't know if
I
you've done
know.
gigs there.
I know. A year ago we were in Rochester. I think that's probably the
Oh,
closest we've
okay.
been, which
Oh,
isn't.
okay.
I mean, I'm not sure. It's not that far, but not that close.
Yeah,
But
we're
hopefully,
20 minutes from Albany.
right. And
Yeah.
that's a whole nother thing. That's where my father's family is from.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, my father was born and lived in Hoosick Falls, and
Oh, I know a trainer who lives there. Yeah.
more important, it's like there's stories like Grandma Moses, the artist, lived there, and he would sneak into her backyard by the lake and go fishing there, which is kind of cool.
Wow.
But and if you're ever in Hoosick Falls, they have like a war memorial that Henry Levine has his little placard on. So
Wow.
it's good to see. And I had a cousin that lived to be 103 years old that kind of grew up with my dad,
Mhm.
and she was totally together like she say, yeah, she lived in this house and this house, and had all the addresses and all the family history. But yeah, and also the cousin's brother, in other words, Sid Walbert's brother, I should name names, is if you know Albany, the egg,
Oh
which
yeah.
is Lewis Swire.
Yep.
Her brother was Lewis Swire, which is kind of
Oh,
cool.
okay.
You know, they have like a little bench with a statue of him feeding pigeons because he was usually a loner but would feed pigeons on that
Right.
bench.
Wow.
So
Lot of history through the family in your life. And
yeah.
hey, Elliot, I got to thank you for coming by Musicians Reveal. Great all these years playing your music on the show, and
Well, thank you for
Heatwave.
doing it. I'm grateful,
Yeah.
appreciative, blessed, especially coming from you because I'm a really big fan of you.
Yeah.
I
Thanks,
mean,
Elliot.
you know, let me give shout outs to people listening from my side. This is the only radio DJ, Joe Kelley to be um, basically endorsed by Prince and on Prince's website. And you can see probably stuff from any member of Prince's band or the Time band. He's interviewed, as well as Cyndi Lauper. And basically, uh, Joe Kelley is the coolest DJ ever. So check his
Oh,
stuff out and
yeah.
like and subscribe to his stuff.
Hey, man. Love you, man. That's great. Yeah. Thank you very much.